Spider-Man. Possibly the greatest superhero the world has ever known. The webhead never ceases to amaze the fans of the Marvel Universe with many critically acclaimed television shows, movies, and video games. Imagine it's the year 2000. Everyone finally stopped having a stroke over the Y2K panic. You witness Triple H retain the WWF Championship at WrestleMania 16, the PlayStation 2 is coming out in October and November for other regions of the world, and you anticipate the release of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. But just a little prior to that, there is another game on the horizon. A game where you swing, punch, and kick your way through various action-filled levels as the one, the only, Spider-Man, initially released in 2000 by Neversoft. The same developers behind the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series came out on PS1, Game Boy Color, and N64 with ports to the Dreamcast and PC in the following year. Today we'll be focusing on the PS1 version as it seems to be the most popular version among the cult fanbase this game has. Upon booting up the game, we are met with this kick-ass remix of the classic 1967 theme song. And from there, we can select the main quest and training mode among others. The training mode offers a little variety of testing your basic abilities such as fighting enemies, web slinging, item hunting, and target practice. Even if it's your first time playing, I wouldn't say you need to complete the training mode in order to get good at the game. Before we get into the main story, I wanted to bring up this. In the cheat menu, if you enter any swear word as a cheat code, Spider-Man will appear on screen and punch the word, turning it into something more appropriate. The story is that Dr. Otto Octavius is a seemingly now reformed villain who is showing off his latest technology at the Science Expo 2000. Everything runs smoothly when suddenly Spider-Man appears and steals Dr. Octavius's machine. Well, sort of. We clearly see Peter Parker in the crowd, so that means an imposter Spider-Man is on the loose. Meanwhile, Eddie Brock, not realizing that he just bumped into Peter, thinks the imposter is the real Spider-Man. Thinking he'll be in J. Jonah Jameson's good graces, Brock attempts to take a picture of the fake Spider-Man stealing the device, only for the imposter to break his camera. Eddie snaps over what just happened and turns into Venom for the rest of the adventure. Then we see Dr. Octopus and Carnage express excitement over the true intentions of the device, to cover the entire city in fog, which funny enough was purposely done because Neversoft had to work around the draw distance issues of the PS1. With that, the game begins and each section of level starts with a made-up comic book cover to build some authenticity, and capped off with a beginning narration by Stan Lee himself.
Welcome, true believers and newcomers alike. Spider-Man co-creator Stan Lee here. Once again, we find our hero Peter Parker, better known around the world as the Amazing Spider-Man, in a heap of trouble. But this is just the beginning, Spidey fans. So get ready for a true superhero action thriller, packed to the brim with thrills and chills, twists and turns, more supervillains than you can shake a web at, and of course, non-stop web-slinging, wall-crawling action.
It's here where the Black Cat acts as our guide throughout our journey.
Hey, Spider!
Hey, Black Cat, what's going on?
I know there's been some trouble, but the bank's being robbed, and they've got hostages.
You might recognize some of the voice cast here. Jennifer Hale returns to portray Black Cat from Spider-Man the Animated Series, and Mary Jane Watson from Spider-Man Unlimited. Reno Romano, who previously voiced Spidey in Spider-Man Unlimited, once again voices him here. Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. reprises his role as Doc Ock from Spider-Man the Animated Series, as well as Darren Norris, who voices multiple characters, with a few examples being Scorpion, Venom, and Mysterio. As Spider-Man, you could jump, swing, climb, and bash your way through levels and hordes of enemies. It's essentially a platformer beat-em-up, and it's fun. X jumps, R2 while jumping lets you web swing, triangle in conjunction with any D-pad or analog direction will create different melee attacks, and R1 will zipline you to the ceiling or wherever you have the reticle positioned with L1. As you're spideying your way through levels, you also come across web cartridges. Collect one and it'll refill your webbing. And there's also health packs, which Spider-Man seems to be quite fond of, especially when he's had enough health.
I'm already at full health. I'm already at full health. I'm already at full health. I'm already at full health. I'm already at full health. 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 I'm already at full health.
In all, all 32 levels, your one objective is to basically just get from point A to point B. While that may seem rather basic, the story engages you enough to keep playing, but that doesn't mean the gameplay itself is boring. One minute you're rescuing hostages from a bank robbery and getting rid of a bomb, then you're swinging across the city and engage in a boss fight against Scorpion to save J. Jonah Jameson's life. All you have to do here is punch and kick the crap out of Scorpion, and you can even throw objects at him, which always looks funny to me.
Spider-Man! How'd that feel?
After that, the entire police force is gunning down Spider-Man. We all know the imposter stole Ock's device, but even if it was the real Spider-Man that did it, is it really worth blowing him to pieces? Like they're deliberately trying to outright murder him. This leads us to find out that Venom has kidnapped Mary Jane, and in a moment that is quite overlooked, Venom refers to MJ as a bimbo.
She's one of those famous bimbos.
Mind you, this game was rated E, just goes to show that you can never get away with this stuff in kids media ever again. Now we're at Omnitech in a boss fight with Rhino. Rhino and all the bosses in this game are relatively easy to beat. You have to make Rhino charge into these electricity beams so he can be electrocuted. You can harm him with melee attacks, but he'll more than likely just gore your ass across the arena. After his defeat, Black Cat is taken away in an ambulance only for her to be kidnapped by Octavius and Carnage. The Human Torch shows up and has a chat with Spidey about Venom. As he swings through the city, Venom finds Spider-Man and decides to torture him a bit. Now we must chase Venom across rooftops to follow him to his lair. I had to redo this part like a billion times. Everything would start off okay, but every single time we would exit this building after this in-game cutscene, Spider-Man would automatically jump onto this wall. Therefore, I had to quickly jump off, reorient myself, and get the Venom before I lost him. Since I kept rushing, I constantly swung in the wrong direction. I don't know if this was a glitch with my copy of the game, or if this is common, but it was pretty annoying. Venom keeps up the mind games with a good old-fashioned back alley brawl. He'll constantly teleport around after you hit him enough times. His main attack is grabbing you, licking your face, and then throwing you back on the ground. Venom isn't down yet, as now we must go through a series of platforming and puzzle challenges in the sewers. Failed experiments from the lizard show up, and this is where I noticed how atmospheric the game really is. This sewer section in particular has no music, only the sounds of water dripping from and hitting against the pipes. We make our way to this subway section and oh my god, this goes on forever. The game oftentimes feels janky and the camera doesn't help here in the slightest. You have to defeat an endless horde of lizard creatures while trying not to fall off the train. It's easier said than done. The sewers are, for the most part, kinda boring, just more platforming and maybe solve a puzzle or two. Venom now makes us follow him in this maze, and here we actually find the lizard and learn that he has been captured by Venom. He provides us directions on how to find Venom, but you tell me if you can remember everything he said without writing it down.
Go back along this tunnel and cross over 2 waterways. At the 3rd waterway, go right. Follow it around the corners, past the machinery, skip the first tunnel intersection, then go right at the next one.
Finally, we have our last showdown with Venom. Give him a few whacks, turn off the switches so Mary Jane doesn't drown, and now he becomes our ally. Peter informs Brock that there was an imposter Spider-Man that stole Ock's device. Peter and Brock head to the Daily Bugle to find information on who exactly stole the machine. Also, Venom has a thing for surfing the web.
Surf the web, surf the web.
Venom yeets himself into the void, and now there is an invasion of symbiotes. Originally, these guys were designed to look creepier and unsettling. I wish these were the final designs, but I guess Neversoft didn't want to scare kids away. While the symbiotes are cool enemies, they take what feels like a million hits to kill, with a comical squishing sound effect.
That's a wet-ass pussy.
Rescue some hostages, bring the elevator safely down, destroy symbiote generators, and head to the boiler room. After all this trouble, we find out that it was none other than Mysterio who framed Spider-Man. Mysterio turns into a giant, and you must shoot these glowing pegs on his suit to defeat him. All while the floor gets electrified, spiked barrels roll into you, and Mysterio picks you up and slams you all the way down. He actually has a second phase where you must attack his helmet. It's the hardest boss fight in the entire game. Mysterio reveals to us that the fog we saw earlier was created to make everyone hosts for the symbiotes, and that the symbiotes are spawning from a warehouse, so we head there, not before having a meetup with the Punisher of all people. Destroy some more generators, and we find ourselves in a secret underwater base packed with electrified interiors and laser turrets. We find that Black Cat is safe. We free her by moving switches to close the pipes producing the fog. That way it builds up pressure and releases her. Venom and Carnage duke it out while Spider-Man takes on Dr. Octopus. Just avoid his tentacle arms and press all the switches to leave him open for attack. Immediately after this, Carnage abducts us and we are forced to fight him. You have to knock him into the sonic bubble in the middle of the room a few times. You can also punch and kick him to deal a bit of damage too. With that, the day is saved and what the fuck? The Carnage symbiote merged with Doc Ock to become Monster-Ock. Instead of a final boss per se, we have a final chase level instead. Monster-Ock makes these really unsettling and agonizing noises while he gives chase. It legitimately feels terrifying if he gets closer. It makes you nervous and screw up a lot like I did here at this one part. My only gripe with this is that the chase goes on for an eternity and there are no checkpoints, but I guess that's the point of making it challenging. Eventually we make it out alive and well, save Ock, and Spider-Man is picked up by Venom, Black Cat, and Captain America. Then we get a few humorous ending cutscenes of the heroes in celebration and the villains in lament of their defeat.
Hey, loosen up, kids! I'm on fire!
My fault? Doc Ock's plan was horrible! Everyone knows you can't control the symbiote!
Your reward for beating the game is unlocking the Venom suit. This allows you to play through the game again with infinite webbing. At this point, what else is there to do? Throughout your adventure, there are comic books hidden throughout each level. Collect all 32 and you'll unlock the Spider-Man 2099 suit. And you can read about the comics in the special menu. You can also look at character biographies narrated by Stan Lee, view cutscenes and storyboards, and play What If mode using this cheat. This is basically the same story but with a few humorous Easter eggs placed throughout the game. And that is Spider-Man PS1. A simple game with a lot of depth once you get into it. Fun platforming, great characters, good humor, this game has it all. It is, in my opinion, one of the best Spider-Man games ever made. And since this game was made by Neversoft, Spider-Man was made as an unlockable character in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Spider-Man 2000 would be followed up 1 year later in 2001 with Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro. We'll get into that game at a later date. Until next time, Excelsior, Demon Slayers!